Great Lakes Hearing, and she's graciously given her time here today to come and talk to us about hearing loss and its effects on cognition. So thanks everybody for attending, and Jill, over to you.
Oh yeah. All right, can everybody hear me okay? All good. Maybe a little too loud. Pretty funny, right? Yeah. Uh-oh, I don't know. See, I've already gone too far. One more, but that's fine. I don't know what happened. All right, thank you so much for having me tonight. I was really excited when Brad reached out to have me come and speak tonight. What a weird thing, but I'm very passionate about hearing, and I think that the way that the hearing and the brain work together is just beyond amusing. So, and I have so much to learn on this topic, and I hope tonight that we can go through some things and you will learn a little bit too. So again, I'm Jill. I'm a hearing instrument specialist and owner of Great Lakes Hearing. So I've been in this area probably for about 15 years. So I've created a lot of clients, and mostly Owen Sound way, but that's okay. I'm working my way this way. I've been in the audiology field for close to 22 years, and most of that time in private clinic, meaning I do hearing assessments and hearing aid fittings. We do repairs, counseling and expectations. Well, that's a different one for, we go through a lot of counseling with hearing aids and hearing. Marriage counseling is completely separate because I get a little bit of that. Lots of wax removal. And I feel that I'm learning all the time. And my career is very interesting, but I have to thank all my clients because they're all so different. Each one of their brains is completely different, which is great. And I opened Great Lakes about 4 years ago in hopes to kind of reach out and keep a personal connection with my clients. Working in corporate is just all numbers, and it's people are numbers, I'm a number, everybody's a number, and at the end of the day, nobody matters as long as there's numbers involved. So, now that I'm part of this, I get to do what I want, and it's been great. So, and I just love being part of this community, right from South Bruce to Northern Bruce Peninsula. It's been great. So I have my main office in Wyerton. My satellite clinics in Lions Head, Tobermory, and I do spend some time in Owen Sound traveling. So I do a lot of traveling to retirement homes. There's a lot of people that used to live here that now have to live in Owen Sound, and I don't mind traveling to them at all. If you call, you'll reach Megan. She's been super helpful, and her and I worked together prior to Great Lakes. So we have a long time history, but it was nice to have her come back when I started. So again, I love educating people about hearing loss, hearing aids, anything, and the many ways it affects our lives. And who would have thought that such a small part of our body has a huge impact on how we experience life and how we age. So tonight we're going to be talking about the effects of hearing loss and cognition, and why caring for your hearing health is about much more than just communication. And so I've seen firsthand how people will walk into my office and they walk in and they're not saying much and they're a little withdrawn. They might be with a partner, but they don't have much to say. And then you put a hearing aid on them and then all of a sudden they don't stop talking. So it's amazing how you can have that impact on people. It always makes me smile. I love that part of my job. Let's see. All right. So I've been doing these hearing assessments and fittings for a long time, and I always thought there was something missing out of all this. Naturally you'd put a hearing aid on somebody that has a hearing loss, make the sounds audible again, and off they go with their hearing aid. But sometimes that didn't fix the problem. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't. But two people can have the same test results, yet experience hearing completely different. Hearing doesn't happen in our ears, it happens in our brains. So, since our brains are all so different, one person may process sound a lot slower, so that makes hearing in a noisy place very difficult. Other people, they process a lot faster, and they have no trouble in a noisy room. So, that's, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but talk about multitasking. So hearing in a noisy room is all multitasking. So as we get older, multitasking gets harder. Has anybody noticed this? Can't do two things at once anymore. Can't cut vegetables and have a conversation because you might cut your finger off. So you really have to focus. And all of this has a lot to do with just brain and how we process stuff. So anyway, that's when I realized there's a lot more to hearing than just putting on a hearing aid. About 10 years ago, we started to see this crazy stuff come into the clinic and all these headlines, hearing loss causes dementia. We were like, no, whoa, that's a lot. So we felt that, a bunch of my coworkers got together and we thought, this is just a little too much. I'm not talking to any of my clients about this. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a neurologist, and I am not a dementia specialist. So, whose job is this to talk to anybody about the effects of hearing loss, how it affects the brain? But the truth is, hearing loss has been identified as one of the biggest modifiable risk factors for cognitive decline. So, whose job is it? All right. I got two things going on. I'm multitasking. So, Stapes bone. It is one of the middle ear bones, and it's used to amplify sound. It is one of the smallest bones in the human body. It's about maybe the size of the tip of your baby finger. And funny enough, this is the bone that they replace with people that have otosclerosis. It baffles me how they can make something so small and do surgery on that. But that is just a fun fact of the day. All right, hearing. Oh, next one. There we go. How hearing works. We're going to start with the basics here. So hearing is collected, obviously, by the outer ear. The sound waves travel through the ear canal, and they spiral down towards the eardrum, towards the middle ear. So once the sound hits the middle ear, it's amplified. So behind the eardrum, we have three small bones, the malleus, the incus, and the stapes. And some people, I remember in high school, we know them as the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. That's what they look like. So these bones amplify sound vibrations and they pass them off to the inner ear. So before we move on to the inner ear, I get tons of questions about the eustachian tube. Again, this is an ENT thing, but we cover this sometimes in clinic, actually more than sometimes, a lot. And the eustachian tube is that long pink thing that's running down towards the bottom of the screen there. And it's a small tube. And it is basically any fluid that builds up in the middle ear, it goes into the back of your throat. So it just sort of drains down the back. Its main job is to keep the air pressure in your middle ear equal to the air pressure around you. So it's kind of like a venting system. And you'll notice if you go up a hill, down a hill, on a plane, your ears want to pop. And some people can pop their ears, some people can't. But if it becomes swollen or blocked, well, it builds up the pressure. You can sometimes hear some crackling sounds, a little bit muffled. It might even give you some hearing loss. But once that tube opens up and releases, everything drains really great. So, right, two mice here. How did I do? Okay, so moving on to the inner ear. So the inner ear is where our vestibular system, so our balance stuff, but it's also where our main hearing organ is, and we call this the cochlea. And it looks like a snail, and actually the Latin word for cochlea is snail. So inside this cochlea that looks like a snail has thousands of microscopic hair cells, and they turn sound vibrations into electrical signals. So the sound will travel down through the cochlea and then hit the auditory nerve, and then it travels off to the brain's hearing center. That's located in the temporal lobe of your brain. So the brain will then interpret these sounds and then turn them into something that everybody recognizes, like speech or music, birds, laughter. All right, a little bit of a closer look at this silly looking thing. And there's our snail. So inside the cochlea we have these little tiny, thousands of tiny scopic hair cells. Now, if you can think of a snail, you've got the wide opening of the snail, and then things travel towards the center, towards the apex of it. On the outer part of the snail, this is where our high frequencies are. And then as we travel towards the center, we have low frequency tones. So when a lot of people lose hearing because of age or noise, or in most cases, it happens in the high frequencies first. So I would say probably 85% of all my people are high frequency hearing loss. And so just naturally over time, these little hair cells wear out on the outer part of the little snail. All right, so how does hearing loss happen? And I think we all sort of know a majority of this. So it happens pretty slowly over time. So this doesn't happen quickly. I may test hearing on people's ears every year, and I'm not expecting their hearing to change, but I have to be prepared for when it does. So the biggest reason is aging. So obviously these hair cells get weaker, they just sort of die off or naturally wear down, and it just gets harder to pick up sound. The other one, noise exposure. That's a big one. All the quarries we have, machinery, power tools, or even you think of one single loud shot from a shotgun or an explosion can damage ears. So hearing loss has been linked to heart and circulation. So there's tiny blood vessels that have to supply the inner ear, and they're very sensitive. And so if your heart is not getting the blood to those blood vessels, that does not work very good. Medications. So some antibiotics, chemotherapy, medication, painkillers, we call these ototoxic. Usually before anybody starts taking these, your doctor makes you fully aware that we have some, we have to watch your hearing in case for this happens. But really, if you think about it, chemotherapy, drugs versus hearing loss, pick one. It's, you don't really have much to compare there. But the other part is hearing loss is hereditary. And researchers have estimated that almost half of hearing loss cases have a genetic component to them. All right. Now, this is a big one, and I think Dr. Harper knows a little about this. Sudden hearing loss, and it's exactly what it sounds. And I don't know if anybody's experienced it, but it's a pretty fast or rapid hearing loss that happens, usually in one ear, and it could be over a few hours, a few days. It's pretty traumatizing for somebody to lose hearing in one ear. It typically comes or may come with vertigo, maybe some tinnitus, hearing loss, obviously, but just generally the feeling of loss. And this can happen for a number of reasons. A lot of the times people will come back to me and say they don't know why it happened, and that's fully possible as well. But this is one of those cases where treatment needs to happen pretty quickly. So within 24 to 48 hours, it is good to sort of get on this. And the problem with that is people assume, oh, I lost hearing in my ear, I must have wax. Oh, I'll go in a couple of weeks. So, well, that doesn't really cut it. So it's something that you need to get treated as soon as possible. And then some of you know about the hyperbaric chamber. Along with some medications, they have used the hyperbaric chamber here in Tobermory to help treat sudden hearing loss, which has been fantastic. All right. How are we doing, Brad? What time is it?
4:14.
All right. Hearing loss in Canada. Yeah. So about 51% of people age 50 to 59. 77% of people age 60 to 69. Where do we all fall into that category here? Probably a lot of you. And so really, how many of your circle of family or friends could be affected by hearing loss? I would say probably pretty good. And the thing is, it doesn't show up all the time. It doesn't show up the way that person really expects it to show up. Everybody thinks I have hearing loss, they just can't hear anymore. And that's really not the case. So how about people say, and I'm going to guess that we've all gone through this. Hey, could you turn the TV up? Yeah. Or how about you're not facing me when you're talking, so I can't hear you. Or you're walking away from me. I can't hear your partner. You can't hear your partner in a noisy room. Okay. My grandkids talk too soft. Or everybody talks too fast. All these younger people talk too fast. So, it does start to show, and we all love to make excuses as to why. It's not you, it's somebody else. But funny enough, family is probably the first people to notice this. And so if somebody says to you, hey, you should get your ears checked, you probably should go. They're probably seeing something that you're not. They are the most honest and the most critical. So, but when you live alone, this is the hard part. It's so hard to detect. There's nobody complaining. Most often family or friends are not going to complain to you that you can't hear, but if you're in a situation where you're with your friend, they're standing right in front of you, of course you can hear them. They're 3 feet away from you. That's not the problem. So hearing loss doesn't just affect your ears. It affects how you connect with the world around you. So when it becomes too hard to follow conversations, people start to withdraw. They may stop going out so much. They may not want to go to restaurants. They feel uncomfortable in a group because it's just too exhausting to keep up. And over time, it will lead to loneliness and isolation, which can seriously impact mental health. And you increase the risk of depression, anxiety, and cognitive decline. So when the brain isn't getting regular stimulation through social interaction and conversation, it begins to slow down the processing. So hearing loss has also been linked to balance issues. So sometimes you're at a higher risk of falls just for having hearing loss. But good news is staying socially active, joining community events, and volunteering, or even just talking on the phone is enough to keep your ears and your brain engaged. Oh, where am I at here? There we go. All right, let's look at this bigger picture here. So here's a list of some of the modifiable risk factors. So I'm only going to touch the surface on a lot of this because we could be here all night, but sound is heard in the ear, processed in the brain. And again, hearing loss is one of the top modifiable risk factors for dementia or cognitive issues. Now, this slide shows other modifiable risk factors, not taking into consideration age and genetics. It's one of the largest. So in 2024, it was noted that 58 to 60 million people worldwide were living with dementia. And by 2050, those numbers are expected to double to 153 million. I was just talking about this with somebody today, how it's such a big circle. You know, as we get older, we have hearing loss, and then hearing loss leads to this. And then, so where does the government step in this? How do you prevent all of this stuff before it starts happening? And they spend so much money down the road later in life that why not start sooner and try to prevent a lot of it? Well, good news. 45% of dementia cases are preventable or delayable by addressing some of these modifiable risk factors. And once you've addressed them, well, you've done your job. But right here in Grey Bruce, dementia affects about 4,400 people, making it one of our region's biggest challenges. And research shows that if hearing loss were addressed in midlife, that the risk of dementia would reduce by about 9%. Not a lot, but hey. So let's move on to brain. All right. So scientists have found that hearing loss causes subtle changes in the temporal and frontal lobes. And these are the areas of the brain that process sound, language, memory, reasoning, thinking, but it's also been shown to show some changes with focus and attention. So when we struggle to hear, the brain has to work harder to fill in all of these gaps, which causes it to reorganize. And some of these changes occur because the brain simply isn't getting enough sound input or information. It's not being stimulated the way it used to. And over time, this extra strain and lack of stimulation can make the brain more vulnerable to memory and thinking problems. So let's think of a situation like this. And I think we've all been there. You're in a room, a big room, you're talking to somebody. You're trying to focus on what they're saying. You can't hear them really good, but you're watching their lips really good. And all of a sudden you think of something that you want to say. And all of a sudden you see somebody walk in the room that's familiar to you, and you're like, oh, I got to talk to that person later, but I'll focus on this for now. And then all of a sudden you think of a story because they said something that you remember a story, and somebody drops a dish, you turn around to look, see what's going on. You look back and this person's staring at you like you're supposed to say something. You say, oh, I forgot what I was going to say, right? And it's just a series of events. It's just everything that happens. Your brain's trying to take it all in. Reading lips isn't a habit. It's your brain adapting. Okay. All right. So again, when we hear, the sound is sent through your ear to be heard, to your brain to be understood. If our ears are missing information because you're not hearing it, it forces our eyes to take over. Now our eyes are doing too much, watching the face, reading the lips, watching all the surroundings. We can call this cognitive overload. The brain's struggling, and it's not processing it all fast enough. So we need our ears to do their job and your eyes to do their job. And if we don't do that, it changes the brain's pattern and the shape. And it, again, leads to memory impairment and more cognitive issues. All right. So, as the severity of hearing loss increases, so does the risk of cognitive decline. So even a mild loss, you're at 200% more at risk for getting dementia. That's what they tell us. We see these a lot in our hearing clinic, and I don't know if you kind of wonder at some of their research, but I mean, 200%, that's a lot. Moderate hearing loss is about 300%. And then if you have a severe loss that's left untreated, you're at a higher risk for cognitive issues. So even a mild loss can lead to small but meaningful changes to your brain, but it is a two-way street. So you need good hearing for good cognition and good cognition for good hearing, especially in those noisy rooms. I had some fun slides in here that were all about fun facts, but when I got here, something blew up and they're not there anymore. All right. So this is sort of a quick little, this is how we hear. So when we are hearing, we have to orient, we recognize, we focus, and then we separate. And so that's just a series of events that sort of happen in the ears. So when your hearing starts to decline, your brain simply just doesn't stop hearing. So a lot of people come in and say, well, I can ignore her anyway. Or, I'm really good at just cutting people out or cutting people off. But instead, that's not what's happening. Your brain's going into overdrive and it tries to fill in all these missing pieces. You may not try and be listening, but your brain is actually listening. So the brain is constantly working to make sense of these incomplete sound signals. And it's, you're guessing at these words and you're watching the lips and you're reading expressions. You're trying to use context to keep up with what's going on in this conversation. And then again, you start using your eyes a little bit more. And all this extra mental effort uses up energy and attention. And your brain would usually spend it on things like memory and focus and other thinking tasks. So over time, this extra strain can lead to fatigue and reduced concentration. So the brain spends too much time trying to decode, and it has less capacity for remembering what was said, which is one of the reasons hearing loss and memory issues are linked. And the longer it's left untreated, the harder the brain has to work and the more memory problems can develop over time. So early detection is important, and treatment. And it's not just for communication, it's for protecting your brain health. And I do have, anybody that's come to see me, they know I'm not a forceful hearing aid salesman because I really don't want to be that. But they'll walk in with a mild loss and they're still able to get by. And I get that. They do get by. But you have to think your brain is still missing those things. So at what point do you attempt to do something about it? And that's a fine line. If if people want to wear them sooner, that's wonderful. And if they don't, it's not like I'm going to force them, as long as they have all the information they need to make a decision. And then we just sort of keep track of things as we go. All right. Brad, did you want to stop there, or do you want me to keep going? Good spot. Okay.
So we're gonna maybe stop for 6 or 8 minutes and just continue.
Is constantly predicting sounds. So it uses past experiences to anticipate what comes next in a sentence. And this is one of the reasons why hearing improves with practice and consistent hearing aid use. Is there anybody I got to repeat that for? No? Good. Okay. All right. Both ears send information to both sides of the brain. So each ear has its own preferred side, but both hemispheres work together to locate sound, right from left, to separate speech from background noise, and to process emotional tone. All right, the auditory system works in milliseconds. So the nerve impulses from the cochlea reach the brain in 0.01 seconds, and is faster than you blink. Listening activates memory and emotion. So music, voices, and familiar sounds will activate certain parts of the brain that do memory, emotion, and decision making. And that's why songs, when you hear a song, it can instantly bring back a memory. So your brain has its own noise canceling system. So the message that goes from your brain back to your ears, it helps dampen unwanted noise, similar to how noise canceling headphones work. This one we sort of touched a little bit. So untreated hearing loss can shrink parts of your brain. The auditory cortex receives less input, and over time reallocates that area to other tasks. They call this neuroplasticity. And it tells us the importance of early treatment. Hearing uses more brain energy than vision in a noisy place. So in noise, the brain listening efforts will skyrocket, and this drains energy from memory, focus, and processing, which is why people feel exhausted after a conversation in a noisy room. All right, so I thought they were fun. They were fun. Okay. Back to these two mice are going to confuse me still. All right, so how do we keep our brain healthy in the hearing department? So obviously regular screenings, and some people will say age 40 to 65, 50 to 65. I don't know, I say 50. 50 is a good age. I'm hoping at that point you don't have any hearing loss, but it will sometimes start in some people because of genetics. Or noise maybe. So start the rehabilitation early. So if you need those hearing aids, yeah, it stinks, but wearing them is important. Keeping up with all your follow-ups and visits, that's important as well. So as things happen, we like to change the hearing aids a little bit here and there just to sort of keep your brain, thinking a little bit differently. Stay socially engaged. This is a tough one for me. I'm not a social person. I go home at the end of the day and I'm far from social, but I'm social all day. So you have to remember that your hearing health is an overall part of your brain health. So exercise and keeping your blood pressure under control and managing your diabetes, that's all part of good hearing health, good brain health. Keeping the auditory brain active. It keeps us hearing better and thinking a lot sharper. And sometimes brain training activities. Some of us don't like games. Some of us do. So a couple fun ways to do that. Again, lost a screen, don't know where it went. So I had it all wrote down for everybody. But so there's a couple apps that you can get. And these are more, what do they call them? Auditory or listening apps. So Hear Coach is one, LACE is another, and what it does is it trains your brain to hear sound. So basically they say, repeat the sentence or repeat the list of words or repeat the numbers, and you say it out loud back. And that helps sort of keep everything sort of going back and forth. Music is a big one. Music and rhythm. So playing a musical instrument or learning a musical instrument is very good for auditory processing and all that good stuff. Classical music, it's very complex music, so that is a good one to listen to. It keeps your brain and builds timing and keeps the auditory processing skills up. Conversation challenges. I've tried this with tinnitus as well. A lot of people, tinnitus is a big one in the hearing world, but so when you're in a group of people and somebody's not actually talking to you, but you sit down in the middle of this group of people and you try to pick one person to sort of focus on and listen and really try to listen. It's almost like a workout for your brain. And if you cut that person off and try to find somebody else to listen to, and I've tried to get people to do this with tinnitus as well. It's like you can try, and it's not easy, to turn it off and on. So listen to the sound of your tinnitus and then listen to another sound that you can hear, like the wind rustling or a bird chirping, and try to cut the tinnitus out to focus on the bird and see if you can cut it in and out at will. Again, really hard to do, but good workout for your brain. There's brain games. Luminosity was a big one for a while. Cognifit, Brain HQ, great for attention, processing speed, and memory. Don't forget your crossword puzzles and your Sudokus and your word recall games. They're good for the brain too. And then again, back to the social interaction. So socializing is the best thing for the brain. Real conversations help your brain and they keep your memory active. It's amazing how just a noisy room in general is actually good for you. All right. So again, our overall health is, it's all tied together really, and especially so brain health. It all works together. Your heart, your brain, your ears, your stomach. They're sort of all interlinked together. And it's really nice when you can have some sleep. And activity levels. That's a good one to keep things moving. And that all comes down to circulation and your heart. The inner ear receives blood flow and oxygen that it needs to function properly. So the good exercise, good nutrition, they support hearing, and getting enough sleep helps your brain process and store memories effectively. Healthy lifestyle is good for hearing and memory. All right. We might be getting close to the end. All right. So yeah, we're so fortunate here in this area, in the growing awareness of all kinds of research, but the local research in this field. And big one that we use is Dalhousie University. That's out west. They have sense labs there. And so they're constantly studying the way the hearing and the brain interact together. And then another big one is the Alzheimer's Society. And it's great for just learning information. They do learning sessions. I actually use that one quite a bit for a lot of my people that come in that are looking for information, because they do have a lot, and it's not for Alzheimer's. It's just to, things to prevent and how to keep your brain healthy, that kind of thing. But awareness all starts with us. So I'm a firm believer and very passionate that learning and educating the community like we're doing tonight, it all makes us better as a whole. So, but we all need to work together, and it's right from, medical professionals, the doctors, people like me, volunteers, family and friends. We all need to be aware and pay attention to the people around us, because they probably don't know that they're struggling as much as they think. And again, why not have that little bit of help to give that person that little bit of, along the way to keep them a little healthier. We all want to stay more independent for sure. The more we talk about it, the more we understand that hearing health is brain health. And that taking care of our hearing today is definitely going to protect our memory and independence. So who doesn't want to stay independent for as long as we can. So when you come to visit us in Wyerton, we do cognitive screenings there, and it sounds a little scary. I think it's fun, but it's part of our protocols. I mean, I play it every now and then just to make sure I'm doing well, but it really just helps me to understand how your brain and your brain is working. How fast is it working? Are you remembering well? I think Dr. Harper would be probably more familiar with this, but we use something called executive function. It's a lot of organizational stuff. We need all that to hear. And I don't use it for anything else other than just hearing. And if people are concerned about cognition, sure, they can come in and do the screenings, but if they truly are concerned, it's something that they need to talk to the doctor about. So these screenings that we do, we use a computer. It's a self-administered test. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes. It's called the Cognivue Thrive, and it's a US-based thing. This was very American for sure. But I found that it was so helpful in helping me to explain to people their expectations. Of how this overall hearing place is going to go and how hearing aids are going to work. But again, if there's any changes or you feel there's any changes, contacting your doctor is very important. I had somebody come in to see me once, and it was sort of really sad, and she was afraid. It was in her family, and I believe her daughter had it, and she had an early onset dementia, which again nobody wants. And she was petrified to talk to her doctor. And it was just so sad because, I mean, all it takes, like, go get it checked. I mean, they're not going to do anything bad. They're not going to pull your license. They're just going to help you through it, monitor it, make sure everything's, you're doing what you can. So that was sort of kind of a sad moment, really, but anyway, Megan and I don't know if they had it up here. Did the Alzheimer's Society come up here for the businesses? No, they did a dementia-friendly business. No, guess not. Okay, so down in Wyerton area, we did something with the Alzheimer's Society, Grey Bruce. And basically what they did is we did a little learning session online based on our business. And then they did a little fun thing at the end of it where people would come around and we'd ask them a question. They'd fill out a little card and off they'd go and they'd win a prize or something. But anyway, it's so nice to see this in a small community. And it just sort of pulls the community together, but it also informs people, the business owners and community members about these things. Because there's so much to learn, and cognitive changes are part of our aging community, whether we like it or not. We're all getting older and things are changing, and we really, a lot of the times, age genetics, we can't do anything about it. So, but we can learn. And so hearing health is brain health. And today, I guess I really hope that even in a small way that we've learned something, and then you can pass that along and help the next person. So again, short story, but that's the end. So.
Thank you, Ann. So folks, we just want to bring your attention to this slide here. I just want you to know that the Tobermory Health Services Auxiliary, although it's called Tobermory, it involves the entire northern Bruce Peninsula. I'll just read this one sentence here. Through service, advocacy, and purposeful fundraising, we're united in our mission to enhance healthcare and foster a healthier tomorrow for the entire northern Bruce. So do appreciate you guys coming. It's been a kind of a challenge, but a labor of love for this community to organize great people like Jill to come. So having you guys here just makes us feel like we're doing something to help the community. There is a donation box if you feel like donating does help pay for some of the costs with today's presentation and further ones. It also goes into our coffers to help with some of the mission that the Health Auxiliary does. I think we have time maybe for a couple of questions, if anybody has one, and I'll just give you the mic then.
It's dangerous to give me a microphone. So poverty is an issue, and hearing aids are expensive. So what do you do if you don't have a nice work benefits plan that will help you pay, or you're not over 65, so the government gets a big discount? What options are available to you? What help is there?
This is definitely it's one that gets me every time too, because of course I want to help everybody. There's a couple of things. Ceridian Cares is one. I've had a few people use it. They're difficult, but I've seen people muster through it. And Ceridian Cares is basically all across Canada, and they do it by postal code. So you can apply to that, but they may ask you for 3 quotes. So again, you have to think, when you go see somebody that wants that for hearing aids, unfortunately, the word comes back and they want to sell you something that's $10,000 or something ridiculous like that. There's hearing aids out there that are a lot cheaper. When we pick a hearing aid for somebody, we pick it based off your lifestyle. So if you're a social bug and you're out in noise, we need the hearing aid to reduce as much noise as possible. But again, hearing just anything, right? So even if you go with the less expensive hearing aid and maybe they're, $1,600, $2,000, they work. It's just sometimes it's a little frustrating because they don't cut as much stuff out as you would like them to, but you're hearing, so.
Jill, does the ADP, Assistive Device Program, help?
Yeah, I suppose. So if you walk into a clinic and they say, hey, these are $10,000 and they're going to cover you for $1,000, well, that's still $9,000. So welcome, and then most clinics will do payment plans. So, that is a thing you can ask for.
Hello.
Hello.
First, a commercial. Government of Canada at work. See this thing? This makes you able to hear better if you don't have your hearing aids on. For further information, check with Hunter and Lemon. Right there. Next one. Veterans.
Yes.
If a person has a veterans
Benefits.
card,
Yeah.
what does that do possibly?
So we do third-party stuff. So workers' comp is one. So if you've worked in noise your whole life, veterans is one. They have their K cards, or I think they changed the name of it not too long ago. Who else? ODSP. We've got. I'm missing one. Anyway, there's third-party benefits. So basically, they pay for hearing aids. And some of them pay for a pretty decent one, some of them middle of the road, but at least they pay for it, right? So if anybody ever works in noise, and it doesn't matter if you're retired, you can still apply for the benefit. They know where you worked, so that is a route that you can take. They can either say yes or no. So
recently we had a friend pass away, and I took his glasses into the Rotary Club to be passed on. But I also took his hearing aids in, with all the batteries and everything, and they were being put back into the community. They said they would find someone who needed them at no cost.
Yeah, for sure.
There you go.
Yep, there's that route too. I get a lot of people dropping their hearing aids off, and yeah, we can donate them back out, and I've done that for people. It's hard to pick who, right? What do? Pick the next person that walks through the door? Like, I don't want to be the one to pick it. Who's more deserving than the next? So there's definitely, and I usually get quite a few of them, but I have to take a look at them. If a hearing aid's not working properly and I give it to somebody, well, and it breaks down 6 months later, well, that's wonderful. You're back to where you started again. So you just have to be very cautious as to if you want to wear a donated hearing aid as to what you're getting.
So, what advice do you have for the social stigma that comes with hearing aids?
I think they're cool, but hey, I don't know. That's true. That is true. Yeah, no, I still have, not as many as I used to though. It's becoming less now. But yeah, we still do have the odd person come in that, oh, I'm not wearing that. You can see it. You actually can't really see it well. They hide, they're smaller, but then we get the people that say, why do they make these things so bloody small? I can't hold them. Okay, well, pick one. But yeah, so we do have small hearing aids.
You had mentioned 2 apps,
Mhm.
Hearing Coach, and the other one was LACE.
LACE, yeah.
LACE.
Yeah. You got to be careful with these ones, though. These are made by the auditory people, and some of them, they charge you for them, which I think is just silly. But the luminosity, I don't think you pay for that one. That one's a good one, but.
Sorry, I have so many questions. So there's a link to balance issues with hearing loss. Do you think there's a link, a reverse link? My whole career was about helping people with balance. If you improve your balance, does that possibly go back to hearing?
I don't think so. Yeah, I wish. Yeah, they got some hearing aids out that actually detect falls. So really interesting for somebody who has somebody living on their own, a parent. So if they fall, it will send you a message on your phone. And if they don't have anybody to send it to, it'll call 911. It's pretty cool.
I will say that if you can strengthen, your core and improve your balance, I'm going to be intuitive here and suggest that will relieve your brain of some of its overload.
It's amazing.
So balance is important. And the Bruce, we're just challenged by wonderful trails and places to go. So get out there.
Yeah. It's amazing how obviously the brain just controls everything, how much goes on up there.
All right, well, it looks like fantastic. Thanks very much, Jill.
All right.